Hey everyone, Hanz here, hope you're doing well. In this video I'm going to talk a bit about the beginning. It's not the beginning of any particular uh, worlds and no particular myths and all of that. I'm going to bring up the beginning of you as a being, as man or as woman, as a capital S self, as some would call it. And I think that usually it all begins with a single choice. From henceforth everything else is informed. The choice to be cowardly, to wallow in the self-preservation instinct, or choose to overcome that and be brave. The self-preservation instinct, at the end of the day, and I think anyone with the eyes to see has plenty of examples, can tell that the self-preservation instinct, that fear, can betray you. And definitely when that fear manifests into panic, which is what I definitely call wallowing in fear, wallowing in the self-preservation instinct, and eventually doing things that shorten life, if you will, rather than preserve it at all. The life of others, the life of the person in question. Imagine a child that is verbally abused by the adults around it, and the child decides to take in the abuse as some sort of life lesson. Surrenders, but that begins with surrendering to fear, surrendering to the self-preservation instinct, which is, at the end of the day, a betrayal of the self. The child will betray itself and do anything it can to serve the adults around, with the hope that it will be spared long enough to survive. The child, however, that is brave will have to go through the same, well, not necessarily serving. It's about attitude, if you will. It's about mindset. That the child will say the right things, perhaps, will do what is necessary to get by, but eventually, within its heart of hearts, decides this is wrong, this abuse at me is wrong, it's undeserved. The people around me are terrible individuals, if they even are real selves, and I'll bide my time. The child will bide its time until it is big enough to withstand and survive its abusive peers at that point. The fear, if you will. Actually, I think I've said quite something of value already in that, perhaps. Some of you may have thought about it yourselves, and good on you, I guess. I find this a very worthwhile thing to contemplate. And maybe I should add that this fear can be surrendered to by a child. The child surrenders its own self due to the fear it feels. But maybe later in life can choose to be brave. And that is good. That would be still okay. You might say, well, Hans, does it matter if then the child chooses to be brave earlier? If in the end it chooses to be brave? Well, it's better than nothing, if you ask me. I think that this sort of bravery that comes later would still be a good thing, would still be excellent to have. But how much more difficult would it be? Because then the child would have to admit that it betrayed itself for the last 10 years or 8 years, whatever it's going to be. And that is, I think, even harder than to face. With all, because now the child has to process all the self-betrayal. So yeah, in the end, if a child still chooses to be brave, it's good. But it's going to be a far tougher process. And I think that is in a certain sense nature punishing those who betrayed themselves. Because if nature gives you one thing, it is your soul, if you will. It is that gift of life. The physical matter that you have is still you, of course. But what is left behind after, well, that is something that is, probably eternal. If you listen to some of the wise men of the past, because it's a form of light, a form of energy, and that does not go away. It doesn't go anywhere. Well, it may float around, if you will. It may be present, but it stays. It remains manifested as something that is its self. That is you. Some take it to crazy town and say then that your body is just dirty and needs to go and blah blah blah. It's like, but if the soul wants to manifest in a material body, that also has a purpose and a meaning to it. It's a bit of a side topic, I guess, but I wanted to throw that in there real quick. And where else can I take this? I think there's something worth adding to that. If nothing else, to look after your own soul, your own being, puts you into a state, makes your being able to or capable to appreciate other beings, other souls. Right? Someone who is abusive does not have that. And that actually also betrays something about abusive types, about evildoers in general. They are very much afraid of everything around them, and after enough misdeeds, they have a good reason for more than what was only between their ears before that, right? But it is important to realize this because they are the ones that betray themselves, and by betraying themselves, if someone is willing to betray him or herself, what issue are they going to have with betraying someone else? Nothing. Nothing is holy to someone like that. Nothing is of any value unless it provides some temporary physical sensation. The next dopamine hit, the next adrenaline rush, and the next taste of food or whatever, all of that sort of thing. And they are incapable of happiness. That usually is also what makes them envious of happy people, of those who, through being brave, love themselves. And it is also worthwhile then to realize that being a good person takes work, It takes guts to be a good person. It takes strength of character at first, important. Physically, well, that comes after when you are matured, big enough, what have you. It's particularly for guys, I guess, but for women too. And is there more that can be added to that? If it is such hard work to be a good person, would you not defend your work if you are a good person? We can go on a bit about that you can go beyond good and evil, but that's a bit too deep into it for this video. Might be worth revisiting later, of course. But imagine, the children are taught this, but you can choose to be brave, that you can choose not to wallow in fear and not to necessarily wallow in anything at all. Just take a bit of good from life here and there, balance it out with what needs to be done that may be a bit less pleasant to go through, and take it all in as a lesson. And then, depending on how you look at it, I don't see any particular spirituality that is genuine, or any religious figures who genuinely are into their organizations lose from it being an organization, who might listen to this and have any qualms with it whatsoever. I'm also going to steer clear though from the obvious delusion that all souls are the exact same thing. It's not necessarily the case, because that is different. Yeah, souls manifest differently in the material world. They're bound by a lineage. They're bound by a habitat and all of that. Different frequencies of light, or however you want to put it. I think there is if there would be a science behind this, I think it might be a very valid one, if it is again genuine. Yeah, steering clear of that nonsense. This would be perhaps very valuable for young people to learn as soon as possible, perhaps even. And it really betrays into, well, once you realize this, those who are inclined to scare others, those who are inclined to be abusive, essentially, to use fear as their emotional club, intimidation and all of that. Once you realize this, you can always look at that sort of behavior and realize you're looking at a coward. Now, can a coward still be a physical threat? Of course. A coward can still pick up a weapon. A coward can still go to the gym and be like 300 pounds of muscle, so to say, and still, and does physically terrorize people. That is definitely a thing. But if you understand that they do it out of fear, you may set yourself on a path of looking at, well, how do you disarm with speech? And anyone that is white, that is honest, will have to admit to oneself that with words you can be intimidated. Even if you are 6 feet tall, whatever the stereotype is that I want to go by. 6 feet tall, 260 pounds, like takes a truck to push you aside or whatever. With the right words being instilled into you and that lack of bravery, words can still have a very severe effect. What kind of words? Well, anti-white slurs, obviously. I'll look it up if you don't know what that means, but I think all of you do. Definitely a few that come to your mind. The things you're not allowed to say when you're a whitey, and granted, some of that stuff, in polite conversation it has no place, but you should be allowed to, I guess. Where does that come from? Well, someone is trying to intimidate you, right? Trying to overpower you. Do you think those are acts of bravery or cowardice in the wake of listening to this? I'll leave it up to you. And what is the whole game of a coward? Well, it's to pretend that he or she is not a coward. So calling it out could be a very apt way of dealing with wherever they put you. Doesn't matter. So long as you have to be in contact with at least one other person, you can learn to just bring light to the shadows that they're trying to cast. Kind of like with vampires. And what do vampires do when they're exposed to sunlight? You know? Guess I brought a bit of mythology into it after all. But yeah, I don't think there's anything else I have to add to that at this point in time. Or maybe there is. Trying to think here of what it could be. What else there is worth adding to. Anyways, let's just leave it at this point then. And consider, think about it if you think this is valuable and where it might bring you. So it might be painful for some because some of you are still very afraid. And there are gradations in bravery and wallowing in self-preservation instinct. Oh, that was what I was about to mention. In the last 2 years, in the pursuit for being safe, did a lot of people not exactly put themselves in a position where they were harmed? Were some people trying to save their lives not exactly put in the ground as a consequence? No, I don't know. Hanz has no clue. I'm just asking you guys. No, I want to know. Leave it in the comments below, I guess. I've also I'm gonna leave it there for now. Also, quick update on Thunraz the Thulian. The first book is going to be out very soon. We are now looking at early February, if all goes well. It has been a bit of a slog, but that's, I think everyone has understanding for that, given the situations that are being imposed on us by society as it stands. So yeah, early February, and that's when I'll give another update and see where we are. Maybe I'll be able to direct you all to whatever links, etc., that are going to be opened up. But I'll keep you all. I keep a light on that for you guys. So, bravery or cowardice, informing all you do in life. What is it that you choose? Do you choose to surrender your soul? Or do you choose to claim your soul for yourself? Choice is yours. You all have a good one. I'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.